element of PPE. It's obviously an OSHA requirement. You want to match the technology to your community service demands. We talked about what are your scope of operations, what kind of fires do you fight. You have a petroleum facility in your community. You're obviously going to have different thermal stresses on your clothing than somebody who does structural firefighting. Those types of issues. You want to look at your past practices and trends and look at the future. What is happening in your community? Is there a unique industry coming in that may change the dynamics of the services you provide and therefore may change how, what kind of things you want to look for in protective clothing? One of the more important things that we need to keep in mind as a fire service, an IAFF study in 2008 talked about contributing factors to line of duty injuries, not deaths, injuries. And I think one of the big takeaways from this symposium is to understand that in spite of all the safety programs we've put in place, all the focus on safe practices, we still struggle with a lagging of firefighter beliefs, behaviors and attitudes about our job and about wearing protective clothing, keeping it clean. We are really lagging. And if you guys can go back and say, guys, you know, we have the best gear in the world right now, but if we don't wear it right, we don't take care of it, it's not going to protect us. We need to keep working on those attitudes and behaviors to support what we're doing. But PPE, the stuff is great. PPE factors in this study were less than 10% of the injuries, and most of those were related to improper wearing or not wearing at all. I don't think there was really one circumstance of the gear itself actually failing. So it goes to show the importance of the firefighter participation in risk awareness and risk prevention. Okay, going back to risk assessment, we're going to look at types of duties. We're going to look at frequency of use. Here's an interesting fact. 2/3 of all departments across the country have some PPE, one element, be it helmets, gloves, boots, coats, pants, that are over 10 years old. That's an interesting issue right now with the retirement, which will be talked about in later presentations. And the smaller your department, the greater chance you will have more elements at that 10-year or over mark. So frequency of use comes into play. Large departments, higher frequency of use, they're going through their stuff much quicker. Coats and pants last an average 5-6 years. So small departments need to be aware of the less you use the stuff, you know, the less you worry about how old it is, because it still is in fairly good shape. And you lose technologies moving on while you're holding on to that old gear. You're also having degradation factors and light degradation factors. Just wear and tear, laundering degrades fabrics. You know, when you run your dryer, you know, that stuff comes out. Those are fibers. That's your fabric slowly wearing away. All those things come into play. Organizational experiences. Again, it talks about that culture issue. What is the culture? Are you very strong in emphasizing wearing gear, taking care of gear? If you're not, you're probably going to have to replace it more often. You know, gear that's not taken care of wears out quicker. We talked about improper use, failing to wear. Again, National Near Miss 2007 statistics absolutely supports these cultural influences that work against us on safe practices and keeping our gear working on our behalf. 39% of 2007 statistics were improper use of equipment. 54% of National Near Miss 2007 stats and incidents had unsafe acts as a root cause. And all the PPE issues were in that particular category. Really, really telling statistic. Back to risk assessment. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because there's a pretty neat chart on page 46, I believe, in your program, which expands this risk assessment table. It is also in 1851. It talks about what are physical hazards, their abrasion, their sharp objects, flying projectiles, things like that. And it breaks those all out. And what you need to do is go to your department Think about how you operate, the type of structures you have, the type of services you provide, and start assessing the hazards you have to deal with. Using this chart is it's just a brain teaser, makes you think about all the possibilities, and there's probably about 60 of them on this list when all is said and done in these different categories. And it makes you really think about where you want to put your emphasis when you start speccing your clothing. And that's really what it's for. You're going to probably have all of them to one extent or another, but you know, when you look at where are my real high potential risk issues are, that may tell you I want an extremely durable or extremely tear-resistant outer shell. Things like that is where it comes in pretty handy. Obviously, 71 covers the range of these risk factors to one extent or another. So what you're dealing with is where do we want to go above the minimum in what particular areas. So you're going to develop your own spreadsheets. That's the best thing you can do. You know, get on the chalkboard, whatever you have to do. But really think about those risks that you encounter in your community. Define your highs and lows. And that will set you on a course to make some much better choices in your environment. And it keeps you in control. Remember, you need to be in control of what you put on the backs of your firefighters. Be realistic, and always keep member safety and protection right at the top of your mind in terms of your selections.
What's worked in your department in the past? As you put your committee together, talk to them and say what has worked, what hasn't. As you go through your process, look at materials, your outer shell. What outer shells have you had in the past? If there's been problems, has it worked good? Your moisture barrier, the same thing. Then the thermal liners. And thermal liners have evolved through the years drastically and made a lot of changes to those too. Features. There's all kinds of features in turnouts. What's worked? Say in the back. If you put a plated back, you have reduced back injuries or burn injuries in the shoulder. If you have different knee padding or knee covers on them. Just go through the code and pan all the way through it, in every little piece of feature, what works, the closures, the cover over, keeping the Velcro cover, that type of stuff. What accessories have worked? What pockets do you need? What size pockets? Radio or flashlight tabs, different features. Start adding those into your wish list so that you can put that in your specification in the future.